here that has no Apple TV, which makes it a challenge to project. So instead, we're going to go old school for the new school, and I'm going to show you, we're going to do everything from above for right here. For the most part, you should be able to learn just about everything we're going to go over. The only downside, what I was going to have a few of you experiment with is actually how easy it is to link up to an Apple TV when you're in that room. So if you want to afterwards, if you want to, you know, if there's a lab that's open, any of the labs, I think Main Lab, Hughes Lab, I think what's the other lab? Brazil, I think, and they all have Apple TVs in them. So you can sort of pop in and practice doing that. The way you typically do it, so this is the first step anytime I'm walking into a classroom, is you drag, if you've downloaded the new iOS, do you know if it's on iOS 12? All the new,
yeah.
All the new apps? Okay. You drag down from this top right-hand corner, and just you type on screen mirroring. If we were in one of those classrooms, what happens is the names of that Apple TV or the lab Apple TVs then pop up. So you have to be within the range of it. And then you select it. On your podium, it would look like, you know, you have a bunch of icons. One of them is Apple TV. You push on the Apple, and then on your screen, it's going to give you, so ITS conference room, wherever that is. I could click into that if I want, but I'm not going to end up being able to project. I click on this.
That's the one I use.
Once the Apple TV, the projector's on, it's going to give you then a 4-digit code to link your iPad in with that projector. You just type in that code in there. So one thing we can't do on here, everything else we should be able to, at least I can kind of show you, take you through some things. So there are a lot of you here, but one of the things that might be helpful to begin with are what some of the general needs are. My thoughts would be there's at least 2 or 3 places that I thought I'd begin with today, and then in future sessions, if people wanted to dive deeper into one of those, we can do it. If you want to move over to a different realm, or if you have different questions, things you're experimenting with, let me know on those. But the other thing is Katie Jacobson is running specific training sessions on a few key areas. I don't have them up on my phone, I think, but on the iPad up right now. Can you just give us a quick highlight as to what those are?
I'm doing annotated lecture with the iPad, which is going to be using Explain Everything. It's really important that you sign up so that I can have them push Explain Everything to your phone, your iPad. And annotated grading, which is using the Canvas Teacher app. Flipboard, which is an interactive magazine app that I am loving. Then the other one, Notability.
Okay.
And then I'm doing sort of a basic, tour to iPad for people who are feeling a little insecure about just kind of getting it out of the box. But so far that one hasn't been as, popular. I'm just going to start with wherever the group is and take them forward.
Okay, great.
And if everything stops working in here, we can go to Brazil. I've secured that for us if we need it.
Okay, that sounds great. That sounds really good. Well, so the couple of key areas, the 3 that I thought I'd at least throw out to begin with, and maybe just take a quick vote to see which one you want to start with. One is lecturing. So Katie's offering a more in-depth on lecturing, but how to do that. I can take you through how I do that using Keynote, which is a supported app. Yes. Keynote is on their iPads, right? Okay.
I don't know if Keynote's on their iPad.
It is.
Keynote should be on your iPads. It's one of the sort of Mac built-in ones. The downside of that is you have to build, create, and edit everything on your iPad unless you have a Mac on the side. I think PowerPoint is not supported, so I won't show you that today. But the Explain Everything is a way of getting around that. And I would actually recommend going through Katie for that one to begin with.
So I'll be able to tell you better after I see what he presents on Keynote, but Explain Everything will be annotated lecturing, and it will have mega power. It will be for the people who want to make short instructional videos while they're lecturing. There's collaboration in it. It is good stuff, but it will be more robust and probably a little bit harder to use. So and then when I see what he does today on Keynote, I'll compare him and let you know.
Perfect.
So will that one be available by the university, or are we still gonna have to purchase that app independently?
That will be available by the university.
Okay.
It's
Quite
actually
honestly, it's a subscription. It's gonna cost the university annually to provide that, so they want you
explain everything.
using it, and if you don't use it, that's okay, let us know. We'll pull it back and give the
I understand, I
annual
understand.
subscription
Yeah.
to somebody else. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a few people, maybe I'm the only one in the room, that actually unfortunately bought herself a brand new iPad in July. So how do I get the apps that are part of the university when actually I own my iPad and not?
We'll have to talk about that offline. I haven't asked that question yet.
Okay, and then if you do have all your lectures on PowerPoint, how not compatible, is that the right language? With keypad or these other?
There's a way to do it, and it's cool. Okay, it's great.
Yeah,
That'll be in my class.
and in fact, I can take you for a keynote if that's one of the things we decided to talk about today. I'll take an old lecture that I've prepared on PowerPoint, and I'll bring it into keynote and take you into that and how you would lecture from there. So, and we'll look and see, because sometimes it's formatting. Like what I found is usually the biggest issue is with animations. So if you have like animation intensive slides, those ones don't translate as well. Most of the other things, you can kind of like a font may increase in size, you may have to tweak something.
Okay.
But I can do that too. So I'll give you the three broad areas. One of them would be lecturing in class using, and I can do Keynote today. A second one would be how I go about grading, and I can take you through, these are all things that I did a little bit in the last presentation in Faculty Development Day. So take you through grading. I know Katie has a specific one that she's going to take us through that she can train you on grading and annotated grading in the Canvas app. But I can take you through some of that today. The third one is also making small lecturettes. So small flipped classroom, 5 to 10 minute lecture videos where you're essentially taking students through a concept and recording it pretty quickly and easily on your iPad. There's a way of doing that with Explain Everything. They can do the deluxe way, and this would be the kind of down and dirty. I want to make a quick 5-minute video after class to re-explain a concept that students might not have gotten, so then they can watch it over and over again before the next class. So those would be three things I could start with. Is there interest in any of those? So live lecturing would be one. Grading using the SpeedGrader app, and I can take you through a couple different things that I do in addition to that to make my grading a little easier. And then the third one would be making an offline lecture, sort of 5 to 10 minute lecture video. Maybe I'll do a show of hands on each one of those. Pick one of those to begin. If you guys want me to do the lecturing using Keynote, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5, 6, 7. Okay. If you want me to do grading using SpeedGrader, start with that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A perfect tie. I'm sure there'll be 7 on this last one. Is that 8?
No, I'm using my head for the next one already.
The last one. Okay, great. You're going to do making a short lecture video to post offline. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So let me start with the other ones. We'll maybe end up with that one. And in fact, how about this? I'll do a little bit of both. While we're talking about one of the other ones, I will record a lecture video that then you can rewatch again on one of those, and we'll get that posted somewhere. So let's do, to begin with, I'll show you the SpeedGrader and just take you a little bit through what I do with the Canvas SpeedGrader app. While I'm going to do that, I'm going to record this so that then you can actually watch this later on if you want. So the way I'm going to do that is, actually let's set it up at the very beginning. I think, so I've tweaked mine. Let me make sure I know where to do this. This is, I don't remember what they call this. It's not the dock, it is the
Control center.
Control center, thanks. Okay, so if I go into, where I just went is into the settings and into Control Center here, and then to customize control. Actually, you know what? I might as well record this while I'm doing this. That way you guys can do it again later on. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to get this, but first I'm going to start recording. So if I go into the settings type in Control Center. You can type in whatever setting you need to tweak. If you want to stop your notifications from coming, if you want to adjust, add a Bluetooth space, everything is in this general app called Settings, which if you're unfamiliar with iOS, that's kind of the home. A few versions of iOS ago, they made it pretty easy to just search. So the way you do that, you won't see the search bar to begin with. You drag down, the search bar appears, and here we're going to enter Control Center and just tap on that. What I want to do is customize controls, and what this does is it lets you add or subtract things to this quick list of shortcuts here that they call the Control Center. There's a few that I use. One of the most useful I found for making these short little mini lectures is simply called screen recording. So I'm going to add screen recording on there if it's not already there. So you can actually do that right now if you want to. Add screen recording, go back out, and then when I drag down from this upper right hand corner, you'll see one of the options is this now blinking red button. I'm going to long press on that. I'll do that again. Drag down and long press. And what that does is, if you have that added on there, you'll see it gives you two different options. One of them is going to be start and stop recording, but the other one is going to be microphone on or off. And the default on iPads is to microphone off, so it won't look red, it'll be gray. You click on that, and that turns on your microphone on your iPad. And so that any screen recording you do is also going to catch your voice. And this is what allows you to lecture while you do anything on the iPad. So again, this is the slightly messier version of lecture, but I found it usually works out just fine for my students. You can always edit the video a little bit later if you want. So you're going to do that, and then click on, this would say start recording. I've already started recording, so here is a stop recording. So I click on start recording, and now everything that's going on is being recorded. And it'll be a video that then later on gets saved up in the Photos app right here. So that video is going to get saved at the very end of whatever we do today. So right now we're just going to talk about SpeedGrader, and this is how I do, I'm going to say close to 100% of my grading is on the iPad through this app. I have all my students submit all their assignments electronically. Even if it's just some link to a Google Doc that they're making, or some link to just show me they were in class that day doing things, I still have them submit it as an assignment. It makes it very easy to then go through and assign them grades on each day. But for one of these, let me give you like a written assignment from, so in my moral psych class, every day that they show up to class, they read a journal article, and then they write a one-page summary. It includes a paragraph summary of the article and a paragraph of critical response. They have to critique some element of the article, and they have to apply it to the real-world setting. So every day I'm getting in these written response. We'll take one of the last ones. So, and these are ones I've already graded, but I'll just kind of give you an idea of what this looks like. So I have the list now of all the people who have turned this in. And again, really quick, just to go back, if you haven't yet downloaded or see, this is a yellow Canvas app. There's also a red one, that's the student one right here. That won't work for SpeedGrader, so make sure your app is yellow as you do this. This is where any student who now has submitted their paper, they're going to show up. So if I click on one of these guys, and I did just find out recently, Canvas for some reason took away the option to grade anonymously on this, which is a bummer. They still have it on their Canvas app. What they used to have, they still have it on their online web page version of it, where you can grade anonymously. In other words, you don't know what student has submitted this, you can grade it without bias. They used to have that up here on this app. For some reason, they took it away in a recent version. They had it last spring. They don't have it now. So that may be something you consider. Like if there's an assignment, you want to really make sure you can grade anonymously. You want to do that online instead of using this app. So now what this does is, I'll give you two different versions of what it looks like when students submit. This is what it looks like when a student submits something as just pure text typed in. For this kind of an assignment, you can use rubrics, but you can't use annotations at all. So if you want to be able to annotate by hand, make sure that your students only are turning in Word documents or PDF documents. Those are the two I usually restrict to. Either one of those two, you can then go back and annotate.
They can annotate over the top of PowerPoint documents.
Oh, in PowerPoint as well, great. This, I forgot, I didn't specify it. I created this course a while ago, way before SpeedGrader had annotations, and I keep forgetting to go back.
This is the text box?
So this is where they enter the text box.
Okay.
If they submit a PDF or a Word document, this is now what it looks like. So what you'll see is the difference between no tools up at the top and tools up at the top. So now anyone who submitted a PDF or a Word document, I have these tools. What I tend to do, and again, if you get interested in this and you want to try it out more and get more into the details, you can sign up for Katie's advanced
It's not advanced.
repeated seminar in this. But what I use almost all the time for this is I will use one tool repeatedly, and that tool is this pen right up here. So I use this pen, I use the Apple Pencil with it. So again, if you're not familiar, if you haven't used the Apple Pencil at all before right now, the way you pair it with your iPad is to take the cap off the end and then just briefly plug it into that lightning. Even once you've paired it once, it'll automatically shut down after a while to save some battery strength. So if you're going to use it again after a break, you take the cap off, you put that lightning in. Once it's in there, the pencil should be recognized as long as you've paired it.
It needs to be charged too.
And it does need to be charged. It can charge pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
So if you, even to do, I could within about a minute charge up a pencil enough to do 15 to 20 minutes of grading on it. So you can just sort of plug it into the back of your iPad and charge it for a minute, and you should be able to go for a while on it, for a stretch. Or if you plug it in for 3, 4, 5 minutes, you should be able to go for an hour or 2 hours of grading. So once you have that, once you have your pencil paired, you got to tap on this, and I usually like to give it one sample drawing. If I don't do one little sample first, sometimes it'll read my finger as the pen instead. But once you've used the pencil once, then now you can use your hand to move around the document, your fingers to move around, and then you can put your hand all over. You can rest your palm, and that makes it really easy to write very small with no problem at all. So I can write really tiny on there, and when you blow it up, you see it has great resolution. But what I tend to do now for most grading is I will use the pencil, and now I treat all these papers that come in just like the papers I used to get in a big stack. And when I sit down to grade it, I usually sit down with just the SpeedGrader and the Apple. And the pencil in hand. I like to use this, so if I turn it on its side, now it gives me the full paper format. It's virtually the size of a piece of paper, not quite as big. And now I can just sort of read through it and scroll through it the same way. I can do the same kind of, again, once I touch that, make it over drawing, I can now make the same kind of comments that I always did. And do it very naturally in the same way that I might do that before. It's much easier now than it was in the past to on the iPad point out quick spelling errors. That's not a spelling error, but to sort of point out quick spelling errors or make comments in the margins in the way that you might be used to doing that. So this is how I grade most of these papers really quickly.
Is this auto-saving the whole time you're going through?
Every time I pick up my pencil, it's updating up on the top. What you can't read there is, let's see, see that? All annotations saved. If for a minute it's not doing that, this bar at the very top right here, that's now gray, will turn red. So if it hasn't saved or was not linked to the internet, it's going to go red, and it will tell you some of these annotations haven't been saved yet. Make sure you're connected to the internet. But otherwise, it updates it not just when you exit a paper, but literally with every annotation you've made. So if that goes red with this one, it still has saved the last two annotations I
Can I erase an annotation?
Yeah, so you can erase the annotation in a couple different ways. One is if you're in the middle of doing it, or if it's the one I just made. The easiest way I've found is I just work with this back or undo arrow to kind of undo one at a time. And then if I accidentally go too far, I can always redo those again. The other way to erase it, though, is just to tap on it and then delete it as a whole. And again, if I accidentally deleted it and I want it back, it's pretty easy to just do the undo again.
Do students see this in live time?
It's a great question. I don't know if they do. Usually when I'm grading a series of papers, like I usually do it in the morning before class, what I will do ahead of time is...
They cannot, Ross. I figured that out. Unless you select the grade thing on the bottom, like if you give them a grade, then it goes and they see. So as long as you don't click that bottom grade part.
Then they don't see the updated annotations?
Because
Okay.
that's what triggers the notification to them.
Correct.
To them, okay.
Yeah.
What I tend to do ahead of time, anytime I'm grading, so like these ones I haven't yet unmuted, is right up here. This is where you used to get the grade anonymously, which they took off there, but now, and you've always been able to get mute grades. So I will, anytime I'm in the middle of grading, I just graded these ones, and I wanted to double check a few of them. I keep it on mute grades. That means they can't see anything. They can't see the grades. They can't see any of my annotations. Once I'm done with that, I would sort of push that bar back over, and then they get an announcement saying you have this assignment that's been graded. What I will do is if I still find that students are used to just getting comments enough that if I'm making all my comments this way, what I'll do just really briefly is down here at the bottom. So you can tell when you're grading down at the very bottom, you have a couple of different tabs you can bring up. One of them is the grade. This is why I like SpeedGrader the most, is it lets me hold the paper, jot all my comments in the way I used to. As soon as I'm satisfied that I have a good idea of the grade they're going to get, like on the first paragraph here, I can then assign them the grade. Like the online version, I can access the descriptions of each one of these categories. Unlike it, they're not just hovering there. So what I have to do is push and hold down to remember, oh yeah, what qualified for a 50 for a perfect score on this versus a 45. And so if I hold down on each one of those just for a second, it'll give me my full rubric description. So you got to push and hold on those. It gives you the full rubric description. But this is what I like the most about it, is it's really, once you have your rubrics entered, which actually Katie's office can do, so if you have a rubric somewhere, she has students that she's hired to just one student, a super student, to take those rubrics and put them into Canvas. Because I found the biggest headache of this whole thing is getting your rubrics into Canvas, and she has someone who's willing to do that.
Oh, and we recently discovered that on rubrics, Canvas added a new feature, which unfortunately took all of your long descriptions in your rubrics and pasted them into the title. So if you made your rubric previously and those are in the title, then your long description won't be viewable in the show me your rubric again, where the long description will show.
This long description right there?
Yeah, but scroll. Yeah.
Oh, so I actually don't have a long description. Nothing shows up in
the
there.
reason it doesn't show up there is because it went from the description place into the title place when they added this feature.
Okay.
I didn't actually know you could click on those numbers to see the title.
So that's like, this is where I keep all my grading criteria. What I do whenever I make a rubric is in the perfect section, I give them a list of everything that would make for a perfect grade in there. So what I tell them is, before you turn this in, read through your paper and read through this perfect section and compare, do you have all these elements that I'm asking for over here? And then usually each of these is like,
and that's normally those normally go in the description area. If we can still see them when you click on the number, then rubrics probably don't need to be remade, because practically speaking, it's the same thing.
you still have access to information. Okay. So the other thing, what I was going to say before, is if I do all my writing on this, what I will do is on the second tab, the comments section, so this is one where you can then make comments about either why you gave the grades that you did. So this is before I could handwrite them on. This is where I give all the comments about why I gave the specific grade that I did. Or sometimes I'll just make a quick comment that says, see my annotations on the PDF. So I have comments that I've written on the PDF. You can see that and download it in order to get a sense. Let me take this off since there was no spelling error and that might not have been a good idea. But that's I'll usually make a comment there to kind of alert them that. And often that's what I'll do is make one comment, highlight it, copy it, and then I just paste it every time into the next person.
So I had to have a student come up and log in as himself. He got an A. Pull up Canvas, my class, his assignment, to show them how to see my comments. Because none of the students were reading them.
The written comments?
The written comments.
Yeah.
None of those students were reading them, and then they were giving me the same garbage the next week. And I was like, what? And then I was angry, and then the student came to my office and he's like, where is it? And we're staring at it for a while. It's actually really easy. It's this little button on top that says view comments, but it just wasn't intuitive.
And in fact, actually, is there a video that we've made?
Actually, it's in their Canvas orientation.
Okay.
But
But they're not ready for it then, right? Like they don't.
Well, we could
they
maybe
don't
link to
all
it on
do
this.
their Canvas orientation.
Right. And even if they do, I think that until they want to see comments of something they wrote, they don't. Yeah.
But if we had access to the hyperlink to that one, that might be a nice thing to put at the top of the homepage for each course that we use that. So just like, click on this link to learn how to view all my comments on your papers or something.
It's part of the pasted in comments
Yeah.
thing.
Because then they
Then
can
I'm
click,
copying and pasting.
then anytime you
that
get that
would be
question, say, yep, look at the top of the homepage, click on that link, or on the homepage.
Right, little arrow compare. Yeah.
I just had a question about if you're making similar comments, like sometimes I feel like I'm stating the same thing and I'm
Yeah.
typing it in. In Canvas, you can save a common comment that you make all the time. Can you do that in this?
There is not the same way, I don't think, to do an annotation this way. And Katie, correct me if I'm wrong on that. I think what I can do, I'm trying to remember, so you can't even do like a copy and paste an annotation either.
Like even in the rubric, Ross, like where in the
Yes.
rubric in Canvas you can
Yes.
you
So-
can do that?
So there are, I made these rubrics a while ago. So these rubrics, there's something else that shifted in the rubric making
Yeah.
where I
There's-
can't make comments here, but sometimes I can on my iPad.
I can on mine.
Yes,
It
you can
depends
on
on
yours.
how you have the rubric set up. There's
Yeah.
you have
Gotcha.
to check a box that says that you want to be able to write
To write
three
comments, yeah.
Then it gives you that
Okay.
option.
Yeah.
And that would be true whether you're on the iPad or whether you're on your computer.
Yes, correct. So that's one, and so on the iPad, if I'm remembering right, I don't think, even when I write the comment on the iPad, I don't think I can save it as a comment to use in the future.
I
I
don't
haven't
see
tried that.
But
I
I
don't
think
see
if
that.
there is a saved one on there, I thought you were saying that you could then use it on the iPad, but I haven't tried
I
that, so I
haven't
haven't
tried
done it with anyone. It's a great question.
Yeah, I don't see the option to do that anywhere.
Okay.
I'm just retyping things, but
And really quick, I'm gonna pause just for a second. One of the things I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna stop this video because this video will record up to, I believe, 15 minutes or so. So I'm gonna stop that video now just by clicking on that button again. In a second, it's gonna give me an announcement at the top saying my video is ready to see in photos, and then I'll show you really quick how I find that and kind of what it looks like. But there's another question somewhere. Or maybe not. I imagine.
I'm just gonna add a little tag on. If you're gonna make short instructional videos and you're only gonna make a few of them, I think this is a feasible way of doing it. If you're gonna make a lot and they're going to be longer, then you're gonna wanna do it with explain everything and you're gonna wanna post to YouTube. Because you will not have, your storage will run out,
Yeah,
okay? So just
yeah.
a word of advice,
Yeah.
travel down the right path.
Yep. Yeah, so for instance, one, in fact here I can even show you kind of what this looks like or how I got there. So I posted just this last week. This was not in the space saving way. It was more just, I want to do this quick and get them access to it quick. But just this last week, I made a couple of these videos like the kind we just made right now. One. And it's pretty easy using the iPad itself to actually post those right into, let's see what it was next Monday. I was able to post those videos just right into the assignment description. So the way I did that up here was I'd edit the description, And then as I'm typing out here, let's say I wanted for some reason to give them access to the video that I just recorded a second ago with all of you guys. What I do is I click on this picture, I click on add an attachment, I choose it from my library.
Don't do that to your students.
Yeah, I usually try to keep it in the 5 to 10 minute range, or sometimes even shorter. These ones ran a little long because I didn't pre-plan it ahead of time with each of my illustrations. I was just kind of taking them through, or rerunning through the exercises. For next year, I made a note to myself on this course to go back and make shorter, more succinct videos on these same topics again. But it's easy to just sort of post it in there and then update the assignment. And then now the students can access those, and they could actually, so for instance, you could just watch it right through that app, like that. So
Can you also put like YouTube video links in there? Like
you can, yeah.
Okay.
So that's actually, if you're editing the description, that's this one down here. Let me go.
Oh, it looks like a
Actually,
link.
you don't even need to click. You don't even need to click on the
link.
On
Yeah.
the link.
You just
All have
type
to
the
do
URL in there.
Yeah, just type
copy
it in.
Paste,
from
copy and paste.
and paste it
Okay.
and hit return, and
Yep.
it's an automatic
Yep.
integration.
So
Okay.
the only reason you'd want to do that would be if you didn't want to have the whole link text in there, but you wanted, say, like, click here for whatever.
You can, yeah,
Then
you
you
can
highlight
still
click
do that.
here.
You just highlight
Yep.
the title of the video, and you do want to do that to be ADA compliant.
Okay.
You don't want somebody's screen reader to have to read a long URL.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Other questions? Yeah.
So when you import the video you just made, is there a formatting issue, or is that okay? Like Canvas just takes care of it?
Canvas just takes care of it. It compresses the video, but it does, so I can't remember what we cap out at on our memory.
It's low.
32.
Low.
It's 500.
32.
Oh, are you
pages,
talking
right?
about the
The
iPads
iPad.
or the Canvas?
The can't. Oh, yeah, no, I was talking about Canvas.
Oh.
Yeah, Canvas,
Okay.
they're both low.
Okay, yeah.
They're both low.
So the
Use
ideal
YouTube.
is the ideal would be to upload it to YouTube and then
Don't
to
delete it from your camera roll, right?
yeah,
Correct.
For Canvas.
It's 500.
500 megs.
Oh, megs.
I think it's megs.
And the iPad can store 32 for what everybody
Yeah.
has most likely.
Okay. Okay. That seems really low. 'Cause I think I have longer. I think I have more than that.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? But yeah. So anyway, for whatever you can, try and upload it to YouTube. So, and I haven't done that actually via the iPad yet. Although I know you can certainly do that.
Other part of that is that YouTube will create some like 95% accurate screen captions for you, which is also another part
Oh, that's
of being
great.
ADA compliant.
That's really nice.
So.
Let's see, other questions on anything that I've gone over in terms of how we do grading, or anything you'd want me to go over and do again. So this is in terms of grading, this is how I do, like I said, the vast majority of my grading. Mostly handwritten. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll use the attached keyboard if I know I want to write a lot, or if I want to do a lot of copying and pasting of pre-written comments. Sometimes what I'll do is to have, if you guys know how to do this yet, you can drag up from the bottom at any time, and this gives you your home row. I try to strategically put in the apps that I use both the most as well as the ones that I want to jointly use the most. So one of those for me is Notes. Apple has continued to improve their Notes app again and again and again, and this is now my go-to. I used to do Evernote sometimes, and I know we have some hardcore Evernote users at Point Loma. For now, I actually just use the Notes app. So if I'm going to be copying and pasting the same thing a bunch of times, what I'll oftentimes do is just keep my Notes app tucked up here on the side. So, sometimes if I'm just going to do it every once in a while, I'll pull it up there and then I'll toss it off while I'm grading. And then when I want to pull it back on again, it's pretty easy to just sort of swipe it on and off the screen, go through, highlight whatever comment I want to then paste in, and do that and paste it. But I tend to keep this Notes app now more organized in terms of different classes. Sometimes I'll even have specific notes for specific lectures, so I can come back from previous years, jot some notes on those, or have things where I want to be able to quick show them some images. And this is now actually where I keep images really handy. Is like yesterday I just did one up on spurious correlation, so I want to have some of these, where is it? Some of these images. Let's do this. Some of these images handy where I want to be able to just kind of pull it up quickly. So I now just keep those in my notes app.
Okay, can you tell me what you would do from the bottom up again?
Yes, so in fact I can show you everything I
Yeah,
just did, because I just
from
did a
the
couple
bottom up,
things.
right there. Now, how did you make those be your little icons in there?
Yeah, so so if I wanted to switch one out, like if I wanted to get rid of Google Drive, for instance, and put it somewhere else, I could just swing that up there. It only lets you have a certain number in there. But if I want a Google Drive to be out and something else to be in,
Drag and drop.
yep. Or if I want to make sure I put that back in there like that, you just take whichever app you want to have in there and drag it down into the home.
Russ, the one on the right, you can, that's a feature also to decide if you want to use the one you're currently using. They're going to show on the right, but you can remove that as well.
Yes, oh yeah, thank
Oh,
you.
it takes
So
it.
this right here is your 3 most recent apps that are not over here. So like if I'm hopping back and forth between SpeedGrader and I'm trying to think what else I would have that would be up there. Maybe maybe a Dropbox account, or maybe something else, or a to-do list, or reminders. The other 3 most recent ones are going to show up here. Or like here's Google Docs, and so if I'm in SpeedGrader, basically anything that's normally along that bottom home row, or any of my last 3 apps that I used, I can now drag up. So like I now use Google Docs for a lot of both in-class and take-home assignments. So if I wanted to do that, again, I could just, all you do is go up from that home row, take whichever app you want, and just pull it up onto the screen like this.
Oh. It's in Google terms, it's called the dock. And make sure you show them that little gray bar.
This one right
Yeah,
here.
because on the right side of that are the recents.
Yep, everything to the
And-
right of this tiny little, you can't even see, gray bar
Yeah.
here, are the 3 most recent apps I've used. Everything over here are the ones that are permanently docked in.
Yeah. So
And
you
Matthew was
can't
saying you can
drag it
actually
to the
take that away
recents.
if you want to make this dock longer.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's in the settings under general.
Okay.
Ross, can you show us again, so when we have the multitasking screen up, and you made notes go away, how did you make it go away? Just by
Right,
pressing-
so there's a couple different things I can do right here. Let me show you all of them.
Okay.
So one of them is here, I just have this overlaid, so it's like hovering over this the SpeedGrader portion here. And so I can make it kind of come and go, and all I'm doing there is holding my finger on this top, just right up where you see that little gray horizontal line, and just slide it off to the edge, and then really actually anywhere from that right hand, if you start off, like you start your finger off over here, and just drag it over, you can actually put it on the left if you'd rather have it over there. So left or the right, or off the screen. But whatever the last thing you're using just kind of hovers off screen, so it's always, you can always bring it back up. The other thing is sometimes you may want, like if you're grading one of these, I don't think these are actually good documents to grade. Somewhere, let's see, let me pull up one of these documents again really quick, just so you can see. So if I have like one of these documents again, and let's say I had, sometimes I do have this, I have like some notes that I took on what common mistakes are or common answers, or here's the pieces of this lecture that are the most important. And so like, if they're writing an article, I may have somewhere a note or a PDF or a Google Doc that just lists, here's the most important elements of this article. So I just keep this up for reference over here. I can scroll up and down on this right side. I can actually scroll up and down independently at this, not that you want to do that. They're totally independent, you can do them at the same time. But I scroll up and down here and I look for, oh, do they have all these elements over here? You can, but I oftentimes will use this kind of smaller screen as a reference that I'm using for grading. If I want both of these things to be, if I don't really care about accessing in the moment, this, so here I can slide this on and off to then access my, my rubric. If I don't really care about that, and actually I just want to keep this on sort of semi-permanently, what I can do is hold my finger down on this top horizontal line and drag downwards like this, and then let go, and now it's a split screen. And if I want those two split screen, you can see every once in a while Canvas goes a little funky when you split screen in the middle of doing this. But if I just load it up again, it should be somewhat okay. And I can make those split screens bigger or smaller in the like, basically a quarter, a half, a quarter, and the other side are gone. So what I can do then is slide over, like if I want to read all the details over here but still keep this active, then I can make this bigger. I'm going to make it smaller again and do all my grading on this one. And I can do it like that. And then if I want to make this, again, go back to one of these, I just drag down on this horizontal bar to either make it split screen or make it something that I can drag on and on. But did that answer, let's see, was that the question you had?
That was just so cool.
And the other thing you can also do is, in fact, one of the ways to just quickly be like, okay, now I'm done grading, but I want to do this thing over here. I can actually just drag that all the way over, and then it just gives me a full version of whatever that was. And then I can just slide right, the 4-finger slide between. And this is your quick way to switch between apps. Just take all 4 of your fingers and slide it, and it's all your most recent apps to do. What's that?
You can double click it.
Yeah, or if you want to, you can double click the home button and it will give you the tile of those. The other way also too to do that is if you drag up from the bottom. Oh, I used to do this. They switched how they did it. Maybe two drag up from the bottom will give you that same thing.
So it takes a while to get used to these finger motions, and you will forget part of what you've seen today. But if you Google, how do I, and then you will, every single time I find, oh yeah, that's how to do it. So those answers are right at the top of Google. They find them real quickly. He showed you a lot of these.
To add on to this, there's a great app called Tips that actually gives you like all the edited tips.
Yeah.
And so it's an app called Tips that you can download for any iOS device, yellow or orange like this. And it gives you all these little things that people have discovered over time.
Yeah.
It's really good, really helpful to check with a couple.
Yeah, John.
We've been talking a lot about iOS stuff, which I think is really useful, but in your presentation you also did one other thing that I found helpful, and maybe others would find helpful too, and that's the use of commenting your comments.
Yeah.
Maybe you could show them how you dictate your comments, because that's a faster
Yes,
way
and
to
actually we'll
comment.
see because the in the upgrade to iOS, I can't remember if Canvas has since re-upgraded their app, but I'll show you. We'll see if it works. And I was going to do it, but actually held back on doing it because when they first upgraded it, this wasn't working as well. So one of the things I typically will do, especially if I'm alone in my office with the door closed, is to, instead of typing out my comments, I will simply, so the most recent version of the app has been crashing when I do that. They're going to update it, I'm sure, soon. But let me just show you what that would typically look like. So normally on SpeedGrader, you can actually dictate your comments just by typing it in, and you use this button down here. And so here, if I wanted to dictate my comments, I would just speak into the microphone. And that I found has enabled me to just leave much longer, substantial comments in much shorter amount of time and much faster than I can type.
I'm
Yeah.
just wondering
Always
if you
check
had
its
notes
spelling.
parallel to it, and then you dictated the notes and copied it, would that work?
You could, yeah, as a workaround for right now, yeah, I think you could totally do that. So like,
It might be faster just to read the note really quick.
yeah, so like if I had notes and then just did a quick new note right here, I'm sure I could comment into the note, and then if I wanted to copy and paste this, I could just do it right into the SpeedGrader. Yeah.
No, it did it
Yeah,
perfectly.
yeah, it's much more accurate now than it used to. One of the things I would recommend is in here. Let's see, Siri, and there's an option in there. What is it?
We definitely need this.
There's one you want to take a look for. Let me just type this in.
Siri and search.
And while he's doing that, everybody hold up
There-
your iPad and smile. Awesome. Awesome.
Does anyone know on Siri, there's an option on Siri that I would recommend clicking, because sometimes Siri does make mistakes in terms of dictating. Many times those are silly mistakes. Every once in a while, if you don't turn on this button, Siri will think you have a foul mouth. And so there's a button on Siri to strain out any accidental profanity that it might misinterpret your words as. So as you're dictating into Siri, sometimes, this is in Siri's large data set, it imagines you might have said something, and there is a way to turn on a profanity filter so that Siri doesn't accidentally think you said something that you didn't say. Especially if you're dictating comments to students.
Or if you actually did say it, it won't record it. Is
Yes,
that
that's true.
What he really
Another thing that Siri gets wrong and that, dictation is that it doesn't always know which two you mean. T-W-O, T-O,
Yeah.
T-O-O. So if you use the voice dictation, you really need to proof that comment before you send it, or you could look silly.
Yep. And the other thing you do have to do that makes you feel a little awkward is you have to narrate your punctuation as well. So
It only feels awkward for a while.
what I should have done,
Period.
comma, is to, that's even an incorrect comma, but is to narrate period, things like question mark. And so basically you have to,
Wow, when you said incorrect, it actually went back and deleted part of what you said before.
oh, interesting. So I didn't even know it had that shortcut in there.
Can you do to TO or to the number, or what if you do that, does it?
It's a good question. I can't remember how you
Sometimes
can play around with that.
Sometimes it starts to put in the two it thinks you're going to use, and then when you finish your sentence, it corrects it to
Uses
the
the
correct
comments,
sentence.
yeah.
Sometimes
That's
it never
crazy.
corrects it. So you really just need to look at your writing before you press send.
Yeah. No,
And
it's-
that's the surest way. And apparently there's some things that I just don't enunciate well because it gives me weird. Doesn't give me profanity though.
The nice thing about
It has a higher
Canvas,
view of you than it does of
you can delete a comment you sent to a student. So I've sent a comment before and then went, oh, no,
Yeah,
that was the
yeah.
previous one, and you can delete that comment.
No, that is true.
Which
Yep.
is nice. Actually.
Yeah, it is nice. You
More
have to go
than
back and
once
always
I've had to
delete
delete
comments.
a
Yep.
comment,
Any other questions? I know we're actually over the 1 o'clock time. I think probably the hard deadline here would be 1:15, but any other things in the last 5 minutes? I want to take the last 2 or 3 minutes and ask what you want to do next. So for those of you guys who are going to come back for another one, what we should focus on, and I can even maybe try to prep some things ahead of time to have some videos you could watch, and have everything all up and running.
You didn't show Keynote, right?
I did not show Keynote this time. Would there be enough interest in doing Keynote next time to take something from a pre-existing PowerPoint, turn it into a Keynote, and then lecture on it
Yeah.
while annotating the
Yeah.
video?
Are you
Sure.
not allowed to show PowerPoint? Because that's what I lectured from.
Okay,
With the
so
iPad?
come talk to me about PowerPoint.
Wait, no, but wait. What-
You don't have to give up PowerPoint. You absolutely do not have to give up
But
PowerPoint.
it's actually it's a non-issue because you
It's a
basically
non-
create everything in PowerPoint. You upload it on Keynote. It's just a presenter mode of your PowerPoint that you already
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
It's just a way to present PowerPoint. That's it.
And that would be the same for Explain Everything.
Yeah, it's
And
just
yes,
something to
there's
present
a
what
way
you
to
have.
access those files
Yeah.
from your iPad.
It's a non-issue.
So don't worry about not being able to get the Microsoft apps. It is not a problem.
There.
Yeah.
Hey, so I don't want to learn, I mean, I do eventually want to learn how to do a lecture with my iPad. I'd actually like to see a 5-minute lecture that you give where your lecture is actually better because you have use of the iPad. Like, I've never even seen its use
Yeah.
as to why I would want to bother doing a lecture.
How about I go videotape him?
Or that's
That would be
actually what I was
great.
hoping
Would
to
you
do.
start with 5 minutes?
Well, the next time we do one of these, maybe if there's a room with an Apple TV, that we could do it on the next time.
She did
'cause-
it in the Apple TV the other day, and I think this is more useful because with the Apple TV, we can't see where you're selecting the icons.
Oh, yeah.
Where here, we were able
To
to
watch
see
it,
that
yeah.
interface, so it made it easier. Because she
And
used
actually,
the Apple TV the
if
other
I-
day, and I
Yeah.
think this was
Well,
easier to learn.
and that's because I was trying to teach the apps, which is different than when he's trying to teach psychology. So it depends on the topic.
Yeah.
True.
Although one of the things, and I'm not sure how this would work, for some reason we weren't able to get even the hard connection working in here, and I'm sure we could get that working. So what we could do in this, if it stayed in this room, is actually do a hard line into the iPad, which would like mimic what happens using Apple TV, and then keep one screen on a dock. So you can see what I'm doing and have the other one look like what the lecture. So we may be able to do that, but certainly I'm more than happy to do that.
I can come videotape you doing that lecture too,
Okay.
if you want me to do that.
Okay. Certainly, so I can do either one of those ways.
Have you ever used Keynote Remote with your
Yes.
iPhone?
Yes.
That would be a very helpful thing to.
Yeah. Nope, that sounds great. I could definitely do
It's like a
that.
quicker.
Yeah, maybe so we can do multiple layers on Keynote for that. Any other either last questions about this or things you'd want me to add to the Keynote topic?
Good to see you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ross.